Todd McFarlane outside the federal courthouse in downtown Portland, Oregon, reporting, providing an update, and commenting on the Oregon standoff trial that's going on here. It started today. One of the things that came out very loud and clear in all of the opening statements, but probably none more so than the opening statement presented on behalf of Jeff Banta, who was one of the occupiers who was there till the very end. He arrived very late in the game. He had been at the refuge once, then went home to work for a couple of weeks, and then went back on the 25th of January, just before the initial arrests on the 26th. But as he was, and one of the things that was presented basically as an exhibit or a reference point in his opening statement were recordings of negotiations between him and the FBI. And like he explained to them, really the only reason he was there at all was to show support for the protest on behalf of the Hammond family and Dwight and Stephen Hammond. And that is a point that came out over and over again on behalf of all of these defendants. The reason they were there, the only reason they came to Harney County in the first place, the only reason they went to the refuge was to protest and see if they couldn't figure out a way to make their voices heard with respect to their support for Dwight and Stephen Hammond. It was all about their perception of what was going on with the Hammonds and how they were being mistreated and how they felt like there was a big miscarriage of justice with respect to the resentencing of the Hammonds. And that's a really interesting issue that sometimes gets lost in all of this. A lot of people know a little bit of that background, that the Hammonds had been tried, they had been sentenced, and they served the initial sentence. But that sentence had been appealed by the government, and when it came back on appeal, they were ordered to serve the entire sentence that had been imposed, or that should have been imposed, according to some, under the federal minimum sentencing guidelines, basically taking the position that they had engaged in arson terrorism, and so that qualified for enhanced sentencing. And that's one of the biggest things that outraged so many people, and that's a big piece of the background that all these defendants emphasized. If it hadn't been for that, none of this would have happened. They were there in support of the Hammonds.